The Round 16 wrap and Origin 2 preview. Damien, Seibold, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Tom. Yourself?
Good, thanks, mate. We won't spend too much time talking about the games over the weekend. The teams are just, they're not, and as the longer we go in this competition, I'm not really keen on the NRL still playing while Origin's on, because these teams are nothing what they'll actually be in a week or two's time. Was there anyone that impressed you over the weekend, though?
Oh, mate, I thought the Cowboys' resilience was good on Friday night. I mean, you know, we've got to remember that the Penrith Panthers have got about 8 or 9 of their best players, potentially their starting 13, out. So how much do you write home about it? But there was a point there where it did look like Penrith were going to kick away, and the Cowboys found a way to hang tough and got themselves back in it, and then eventually won. But again, they did have, you know, their spine playing, so that helps. Jake Granville's still an excellent hooker, so, you know, those things being intact, it was no surprise that they ended up winning. It was probably how they won that surprised me. The other one was, I don't know if it's more about how bad the Dogs are at the moment or whether there was some improvement in the Sharks, but, you know, there's a bit of talk floating around that Nico's back and the real Nico stood up yesterday. Well, mate, did he really? Like, you know, the first 10 minutes he kicked the ball dead on the full, or into touch in the dead ball line. A couple of wayward passes that hit the deck and went over the sideline, and then he scooped up that loose pill and went 90, and he sort of did find a gear then and started playing okay footy. But the way that Cronulla destroyed Canterbury was really alarming because it was just simple one-on-one misses. Reid Marnie, who I rate as a top 5 hooker in the comp, he was disgraceful. The amount of one-on-one tackles he missed yesterday was just alarming.
I just want to touch on a couple of players there throughout those games. In the Penrith Cowboys game, Jack Cogger, I thought was superb for Penrith. What is it about this team that, you know, they had Sean O'Sullivan last year who was just there for cover for Nathan, but ended up playing about 8 or 9 games. But their backup halves just seem to learn so quickly and to be able to look like they can put a team together.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It says a lot about their development of their junior players. So the amount of time and effort that they put into those underage blokes. So, you know, your Jersey Flegg, SG Ball and New South Wales Cup players. Obviously, their recruiting's very, very clever as well. So they very rarely miss when they identify someone at 16, 17 and bring them through. So, you know, Gus, love him or hate him, whatever he set up there 10 years ago certainly has been great for the club.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other one I just wanted to touch on, the Roosters beating the Knights. Luke Keary out for an extended time now. Sam Walker...
Sorry, mate, to interrupt, but I did see a report there just an hour or two ago that it looks like he's been cleared of a broken jaw. They're just looking at whether or not the plate that he's already got in there is being displaced, and that's what the issue is. And if so, worst case scenario, he might only miss a week or two now.
Yeah, okay. Well, they certainly need him on the park, don't they?
Oh, they do, mate, yeah. Like, that was... Look, it wasn't a great game of footy, was it? I did get the chance to watch most of that one live, and then I watched a replay of it, and yeah, it was underwhelming.
It's such a bad loss for Newcastle. You've got all the Origin big guns out for the Roosters. The Roosters are certainly not playing well, and for the Knights to lose that at home, if they get into trouble later on in the year, they'll look back at games like this.
Oh, for sure, mate. Like, I think they're starting to struggle. You know, you look at the win they had a couple of weeks ago against a very understrength Manly side when it was a dubious spin binning and penalty that really cost Manly the game, and Newcastle ended up being the beneficiary of it. It wasn't that impressive, was it? And now, obviously, you know, they've dished this up. I think the Knights are going to battle to get out of that bottom 4.
The other one I just want to touch on is the Storm Tigers game. Storm won convincingly, but I do think the Tigers showed something in attack there. They created a lot of chances, just weren't able to get the ball over the line.
Well, they're missing key players. Like, you know, they don't have any halves. They don't have their their best hooker. It, so it was surprising that they actually created as many opportunities as they did, to be fair. So, they're going okay. They're still my favourite to win the Spoon, though.
And the other game, Parramatta and Manly, you must you must be conflicted in your household when this game's on.
Oh, well, yeah, myself and my son, and even Dad, Dad's a Parramatta fan as well, but myself and my son, we're, over-the-top fanatical Para fans, and obviously blood's thicker than water, so part of me was hoping that Manly actually won on the weekend, because Para's got a lot easier run home than what Manly do, and I think we spoke about this at the start of the year, that, if Para starts to get on a bit of a roll, they're going to be really dangerous. And they do have a fairly soft draw home. I can see them going on a big run here. And a month ago, we were talking about, they need to win a couple. Now, all of a sudden, I think they're sitting equal fourth.
Yeah, exactly right. And the one thing I just will say about Manly, though, we've spoken about this a lot, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. The importance of Daly and Tom to that team, they cannot afford for them to get injured.
And Jake.
Yep.
Oh, definitely, mate. It's been the same story for years. As soon as Tom doesn't play, and Daly, but things just fall apart. So I've got to be open and honest. I only got to watch the highlights of this game because I was actually coaching myself on Saturday night, so I didn't get a chance to watch it in full, and then just ran out of time to watch a replay before today. So I'm only basing my opinion on this game on highlights, and it looked like Gutho was on fire, mate. Can you confirm that was correct?
Yes, he was on fire. He's playing really well, Gutho, and they're missing a few players. The Eels still, obviously, particularly the starting halves, and Gutho, he's been tremendous the past couple of weeks, and he wouldn't go out of place in an outside back jersey if New South Wales need to call him up, that's for sure. Hey, we'll do our top 5 back rowers, and then we'll move on to some State of Origin talk. This is not a clear-cut list. This could go many different ways, I feel. Did you feel that this was pretty open for you?
Mate, very, very tough. Considering, the first couple of back rowers that sprung to mind for me are injured and not even playing. So, I reckon, and you'd agree, Sean Lane and Angus Crichton would have been on anyone's top 5 list this time last year.
Yep, and also throw in Kickout.
Yeah, that's right, and Kickout, definitely, mate. So those three, and, they're the obvious ones that came to mind. I thought, well, hang on, they're not even playing, so they can't be considered.
Yep, that's right. So we'll kick things off with number 1, and, this number 1, he might not even be in your top 5. That's the variety that we've got here in the back row. I've gone David Fifita.
Okay. Yeah, he is in my top 5, mate. My number 1's actually Liam Martin.
Yep, fair enough. And Liam Martin's my number 2. So who have you got at number 2?
I've got, and again, it's a little bit of what he did the last 12, 18 months, but my number 2 is Papali'i, Isaiah Papali'i. I think I was a little bit critical of him at West Tigers earlier in the year, but when you do watch what they're doing and watch him closely, he's probably one of the reasons why they aren't getting blown away and they're staying in games. So he still stays in the top 5 for mine.
Yeah, Papali'i is an interesting one. I definitely wouldn't say he's a bad player at all. I just think he was very much the beneficiary of being in a good Eels team at the time and playing off some very good halves there. I just don't have any room for Papali'i in my top 5. But that's the depth of the back row. Like apart from sort of Kickout, who I would put at number 1, it's very open. Like you could have the next 10 guys all be really close.
Yeah, it's a photo finish, isn't it? And they're all quality players too.
Oh, no doubt in the world. So, number 3, who you got?
Number 3 is where I've got Fifita.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So, I've got Jeremiah Nanai at number 3. He certainly didn't start the year as well as what people would have liked him to, but he has got so much talent at a young age. He's a bit Sonny Bill-esque with some of the things he does, and he started in Origin 3 last year and was absolutely superb. I've got no doubt he's going to do a good job this Wednesday night. Who have you got at number 4?
Mate, just on Nano, I agree with everything that you said. I think he's special young player, and I just couldn't squeeze him into my 5, considering he hasn't really played that much footy and he didn't start great. But yeah, he's special. Mate, my number 4, he's probably been off the ball a little bit the last few weeks, but based on the first 10 games, is Olakau'atu. I thought he's been outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And Olakau'atu, he would have been probably my 6. He's had a superb moments throughout the year, certainly, but certainly one of the highlights of his career will be this year. And it's just that it just goes back to that thing that, there's probably 10, 12 guys you could put into the top 5 of the back row and no one would have a problem with it at all. My number 4, though, I've gone Keon Kalamatangi.
Okay.
I think he's a sensational player. I hate whenever they move him to the middle. It's so bizarre to me. But play him on an edge and he's superb.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And he's around my 6 or 7 mark, and the only reason he's not in the top 5 is because of the amount that they've been playing him in the middle. And like you said, it's bizarre. It really nullifies what makes him so dangerous. Well,
teams would rather him play in the middle.
Of course. He's going to make big meters through the middle. And you're potentially strengthening a position because they're down some middles, but you're weakening one of their best attacking options on an edge because it takes flies away. It opens things up for Taff and allows him to look a bit better than what he probably is without being too harsh. But the other person that I think it's impacting the last few weeks is Campbell Graham as well. He's not getting as much ball, and I think it's because since that move to the middle, defenders can really aim up on Graham because they know that he's the main threat on that right edge.
Fair point. And who have you got at 5?
Mate, my 5 might be a little bit... it's Britton Nakora. I thought he's been unbelievable this year. He's so damaging on that right edge for Cronulla. He scores tries. He's a tough man. He takes a hell of bringing down, and defensively he's excellent as well. So he's my number 5. Tyson Brazell was another one that was thereabouts, but I just think Nakora for mine, he's been excellent.
Sneaky fast, Britton Nakora, and T. Wilton on the other side. If they compare those two, that's pretty good second row combo.
Yeah, that's right, and you got. Oh, I'm sure, I don't know who your 5th is going to be, but we can go through the notable omissions after that, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. But my number 5, definitely a smoky. And granted, he hasn't been playing his best this year, but neither has anyone else in his team, to be fair. I thought he should have been picked in the Australian squad at the end of last year, and it's Nat Butcher. I think he is a superb player, and like I said, none of the Roosters are playing any good this year, but he was fantastic come the end of last year.
Yeah, I agree. He's very good, and I didn't even think about him, but as soon as you mention him, you could argue that point because he goes good. He's certainly nowhere near where he was at this point in last year, but he's a good footballer. And you think of blokes that we've left out completely, like we didn't even mention Hudson Young, who, has forced his way into an Origin side. As I said before, there's Tyson Frizzell. I had Kalamatangi as a guy that was, almost there, but couldn't quite get him in my top 5. And like we already mentioned, arguably the best 3-back rowers in Lane. I've just gone blank for a second there. So
Madison?
Lane and Kickout.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys would be a walk-up start in, and Angus Crichton. That's the other name I was trying to think of. There'd be a walk-up start in most people's top 5 if fit. So, yeah, there's a lot of depth there.
No doubt. Definitely one of the tougher positions, but we'll move on to dummy halves next week. But right now, though, we'll go on to State of Origin. Latrell pulling out. We spoke about this last week. I said I would be stunned if he plays. He's come out now, and it seems like he's going to be out for a long time, Latrell. It is the biggest loss they could have had by a country mile after Nathan Cleary pulling out.
It is for sure. It certainly hurts them. I suppose the only difference between game 1 and this one is at least he pulled out early, so it didn't really impact training. I'm sure Crichton just slid straight in. So, yes, Latrell is a massive out, and they're going to they're going to miss him because he would have added something definitely. But I don't think it'll be as obvious. So, we spoke last time about the disjointed attack on that left-hand side, how many balls went to ground, things like that, because it was clear that they trained with a certain player in that position, and then all of a sudden at the last minute it's been changed basically at the captain's run. So it might not be as big of an impact as what it was game one, but certainly you would rather have him than not, wouldn't you?
Oh, no doubt. And this New South Wales campaign, if you will, reminds me a lot of the 2021 series that Queensland went through. So that was a series where all 3 games were in Queensland. Paul Green was the coach. But the Queensland camp just had so many injuries, and it was down to the point, and so many dramas. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure that was the Ronaldo Mulatalo getting picked for Queensland year. And Reece Walsh got picked but had to pull out at the last second as well, and they just had so many injuries upon injuries. And the problem that they had, and they admitted this afterwards, is that they picked guys who were 50-50 going into camp, and that's one thing that you've seen with Queensland at the moment, isn't it? If you're 50-50, you're not getting picked.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that's the benefit of where we're at the moment with how strong our depth is. If someone's not right, they're just, like you said, they're not getting considered. We're going with the fit player, and there's probably 25 or 22 to 25 guys in Queensland at the moment who are all within a whisker of each other. So it definitely it's big, isn't it? It makes a huge difference.
And if you go back and look at the 2020 team that won for Queensland, there are blokes in there that should never have played for Queensland whatsoever, that aren't even getting runs for their club now. But we're certainly not at that stage at the moment. Like Corey Horsburgh is the 19th man for Queensland. If he was to get a run, you wouldn't blink twice at it.
No, definitely. And you think, Dearden obviously misses out this time, so he was able to play a bit of footy, because it would have been tough on him to just hit through 2 Origin camps as 18th man and then miss out on club footy. So it's a big chunk of time to not play a game. There's certainly a number of players there that could do a job. How do you feel going into this game? Like, we should win by 20, really. With Latrell out, the changes,
I wouldn't say 20. However, I am really confident, and that probably does scare me a little bit, the fact that I'm really confident. Look, there's a couple of things that...
so are we. I haven't seen us with this smugness, and it concerns me.
Well, there's a couple of things that stand out.
Have you noticed?
Yeah, I have. There's a couple of things that stand out to me, though. I will say that in the hierarchy of the Maroons, it's a lay-down misère win as far as smarts, ability, decisions, tactical nous, interchange plans. To me, they've just blown them off the park. So that gives me a lot of confidence, knowing that we've got some really intelligent people at the top of the Maroons at the moment. Also, the fact that our spines, apart from Reece Walsh, obviously, but at least he's played the one game, our spines played together a lot. Cherry Evans, Munster, Hunt and Grant, they've played a lot of footy together, and now they're coming up against a 1, 6, 7 and 9 that I'm not sure have ever played a game together. So it gives me a lot of confidence in that regard.
I think they've had one game together, but that's it.
Yeah, and, like Mitch Moses is probably going to have to think back to West Tigers days, to when he was playing with James Tedesco, and rely on some combinations there.
Exactly. So it'd be interesting to see, what they do, and I mean, they're classy players, and every team plays with the same shape. It's just got different names at different clubs. So realistically, you would think that they will fall into some sort of rhythm fairly easy, but definitely they're under the pump, and then they're the underdogs. And I don't know what it is. I do like the fact that, and again, from the very beginning, Cameron Smith being involved in that coaching staff and being involved in the setup, because he is, in my mind, he's the best player since I've watched footy. So that goes back to the early '80s, and how smart he is. He's just smarter than everyone, and he makes people better. And I'm sure he would be doing that in camp as well. So that obviously gives me a little bit of confidence. But there's just something about us the last week and a half that I've never seen before. And it went back starting with a number of Reece Walsh's comments not long after game one, and it's sort of just been one thing after another, and it's like, oh, that's just not us, and are we getting a bit ahead of ourselves? That's my concern.
I totally get what you mean. I would say, though, that I don't think it's an arrogance thing. I think it is pure confidence, and I think that has been injected into the team over the past 12 months from Billy, because, and it just goes to their style of play. So the try that the Hammer scored that took Queensland the lead in game one, that came off a massive shift in Queensland's own 40-metre line. Like, it stuns me how much they are willing to promote the ball in their own half and willing to spread the ball to get to the outside over the past few Origins. That's never happened in Queensland before, but Billy's injected this confidence to go, hey, boys, we got Munster, we got the Hammer out there, let's go play.
And we did speak about this one. That was, Munster spotted the weakness, and he almost ran sideways to get to it, didn't he?
Yeah. I do feel bad for Nico. He's played 12 minutes of Origin in a terrible decision to put him on and in his untried position, but he did get burnt in that one. There's no doubt about it. But I
think he'll play. He will play again. He will play again
for sure.
It's just a matter of when and how they use him.
Well, he can play 14, but you can't carry someone at 14 just for injury, right? Like, you need to have some sort of plan to get them in the game.
And again, were their concerns around him defensively? Is that why they never brought him on as a back rower and used him, as a ball-playing lock or ball-playing edge back rower? I'm not too sure. Because, like we spoke about previously, we've done it plenty of times with blokes like Morgan, Cronk, Cherry Evans. Even New South Wales have done it with players in the past. Craig Ling didn't just come on and play hooker. He used to play a bit of lock. They've had other guys like Greg Bird sort of play that role as well. Sean Timmins, I don't know, going back a little bit there, but there's a history of New South Wales and Queensland using players like that, and they obviously had no intention of doing it.
The fact that Jack Whiten is much better defensively makes him a much better 14, and it's quite stark, the comparison, because as a half, Nico's probably got him there, but as a 14, Jack Whiten's a no-brainer. Yeah,
definitely. He's not just a good defender. He hits, doesn't he? He's very physical.
Yeah, there was one moment from last year that really sticks out to me. It was when Pat Carrigan first came on the field, and it was his first moment in Origin, and he absolutely came out of the line and whacked Jack Whiten. And everyone was like, oh, okay, Pat Carrigan's on the field. The very next set, Jack Whiten came out and whacked him back. Like, he was not stepping back at all.
Yeah, exactly. And they do. I'm sure they miss him for a number of reasons, because by all reports, he's a great person as well. So, having those type of people in camp would definitely help.
How does New South Wales win this game? They're certainly up against it. It's very rare that they go to Suncorp and win, and now they don't have Cleary and Latrell, who I'd argue are their two biggest game breakers that they've got, and certainly most important player in Nathan Cleary. How do they win this game?
This might sound weird, but I reckon they've got to shift the ball as much as possible early. So, they go away from the Isaiah Yeo-based attack where everything's revolved around him as that link man. I personally think Moses and Jerome Luai need to shift the ball from side to side, attack Queensland on the edges, and then that'll open up the middle for Isaiah Yeo to inject himself after 15 or 20. And I know stereotypically and historically, any coach would say you've got to go forward first, you've got to earn the right before you shift the footy. I just think that New South Wales have got to move Queensland around. They've got to stretch their line defensively, and then what that'll do is it'll start to create a bit more space through the middle, with the defensive line not being able to be so central with where they're setting up, and those middles loading up on Isaiah Yeo and the forward going through the middle of the field. So I think that's what they need to do. It allows then Luai and Moses to jump short sides as well on the back of the shift, and both of those guys, in particular Moses, he's probably he's probably the best at it, to be fair. Him and Cherry Evans would be a photo finish of jumping short sides. But so it allows two things. It allows Moses to play short sides, and it also then allows Yo to come into the game after 20 minutes and play that more through the middle direct style.
Give me a prediction about the game. It doesn't necessarily have to be a score, but just tell me something that you think will happen in the game.
I think it is going to be one of two. Well, I think Queensland win and should win. Regardless of who wins the game, it's going to be someone's getting put away early. So I reckon within the first 20 minutes, we're going to know who's winning this footy game. And it's going to be 12, 18-0 after 20 minutes, either way.
Particularly if Queensland get on top, it's going to be so tough for New South Wales to get back into it.
Oh, definitely. And you know, both teams are talented enough to get themselves out of jail. I just have a feeling it's going to be one of those origins where it's 3 quick tries early. Before you know it, it's 16, 18-0, and it could be game over.
I'll give you one.
What's your thoughts?
I'll give you one. I don't think there's a chance that either of these teams start as named. I spoke about this last week. I think Reece Robson will start for New South Wales, and I think that Mo Fodawaker will probably start for Queensland. There might be more changes than that. Liam Martin could definitely start. It wouldn't even shock me if Stefano started for them. But I just think the two most obvious ones out of those lot are Mo Fodawaker and Reece Robson. What do you think about that?
Yeah, potentially. I know we spoke about the Reece Robson one, and I know I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go anywhere near that. But I think you're right. I think they're going to consider it. Stefano, he may start. And would you start him for Junior Paulo or Payne Haas?
Well, Payne Haas has to start, and I think one thing that they'll take out of the last game is they were down 12-0 early, or 10-0, sorry. They can't afford to do that. So I think that they might go all chips in, and they might start. Actually, come to think of it, I think Paulo and Haas will start, but I think it'll be Frizzell and Martin, because I just don't think that they can afford to get down at Suncorp. I don't think they can afford to start like they did last time.
I agree. And I actually think they'll start because they can't afford it. They've got to start well. And that's why I think they will start Haas and Paulo, and Damien Cook will be, you know, the hooker from the start of the game. He might get a spell after 20 or 30, which is unlike what normally happens with him. But I just think, they have to start well, and they've got to put their best players on the field. And Frizzell and Martin are certainly their two best second rollers, so they're a must. And I like Cameron Murray coming on after 20 through the middle as well. So I think that's obviously something that they need to look at. How they use Haas and Paulo though is going to be so interesting because Haas has to play 60 minutes, and New South Wales got back in the game when Paulo came on the other day. So it could be a coincidence, or it could be the go forward and second phase play that he generates.
Doesn't this make a lot of sense to you, though? Because if they start Robson, to get Cook on, it'll only take one interchange, right? And then Robson could go to the bench, and he can be your backup middle forward, because you'd assume that Cook would play the rest of the game. Whereas if you start Cook and you were to give him a breather, that takes 2 interchanges. Now, I know New South Wales don't like to think about interchanges and how they're going to plan this, but I just think that makes more sense. And then at the 20-minute mark, you can bring on Murray and Cook at the same time.
And it just depends on how they want to use Robson because, again, I know exactly what you're saying, and it's one tub over 2. I'd be starting Cook. I think Cook's is just a significantly better player than Robson in my mind, so I think he has to start. And it might be that with 20 to go, Robson comes on.
What about?
So, Cook plays 50, 60 minutes, and that's him for the night.
What about Queensland?
I think you're right. I think Fodawaker is a big chance of starting. Apart from that, I don't think there'll be too many other changes. It'd be good to get Fodawaker on the field early, get him into the game. People forget this. I think this might be his 6th or 7th Origin that he's going to be playing as well. So he's got plenty of experience. So I can get him out there, let him cut loose, and see what he can generate.
According to the advanced stats, Mo Fodawaker is the best play one carry in the game this year. So I just think him charging off the back fence is pretty exciting for Queensland.
Yeah, he's one of those blokes that he's got really, really late footwork. So, a defender might be lined up to tackle with the left shoulder, and then right at the very last second, he shifts off that shoulder onto the right shoulder, and he doesn't necessarily make line breaks or break tackles, but what he does is he makes defenders lose the tackle, if you know what I mean. So he's winning every play of the ball. So that's where those advanced stats would come in, because he quick to his feet, plays the ball fast, and then generates that ruck speed off the back of it.
Siebes, just to finish off, give me a score and a man of the match.
Okay, so I really can't come to a conclusion here. Like 32-14 Queensland.
That's exactly what I had written down.
32-14 Queensland. But I'm only saying that because I'm a Queenslander. Like I don't believe it. I really. Well, I think they win.
There are two things that you can take out of that. First of all, I think there's going to be a lot of points, and second of all, I do think that if Queensland get on top, they could run away with it.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Yeah.
And I think my man of the match will be Harry Grant.
Well, I'm convinced that it's going to be Cameron Munster, because they'll make up for him. He should have won it game one.
Yeah, he'll be the Wally Lewis medal.
And for New South Wales, I think if they're to win, it's actually Mitch Moses, man of the match. He's been playing good footy. He seems like he's primed and ready to go. So I think that would be where I'd be leaning towards if New South Wales win. But I'm adamant. After 20 minutes, we're going to know who wins, and they'll win well. So there's probably no other bet that we should get on this Wednesday than a golden point draw.
Good stuff, Siebes. Good.